Well, the Democrats have done the most Democrat thing I think I can possibly think of is they have decided to purchase a list because they can't find out why they are so unpopular with the people in the United States of America. It obviously can't be that they are anti-border, or it can't be that they are allowed tens of millions of people to come into this country. It can't be the obvious reasons, like they printed trillions and trillions of dollars for no reason whatsoever and caused massive amounts of inflation and prices to go up exponentially. It can't be because they've gone on the wrong side of every single issue, including women's rights. You know, you think that this would be an easy one, but they tried to reduce women to just abortions and allow biological males into women's sports and spaces. I can't imagine why that didn't work for them. And so the Democrats, rather than learning any of the lessons of why they're on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue, they have now decided instead that the problem isn't that they're on the wrong side of every issue. No. See, for the Democrats, the problem is that they have just needed to market better, right? They need to send out a better message to the American voters. The Democrats actually think that we just need to lie more. And so to help them do that, to help them come and get on message and to say the same thing to all American voters, but not say the wrong things anymore, they have hired this private company now to go in and start to tell them what words they should and shouldn't be using. And this comes exclusively from Political. And the headline is, "The woke words Democrats should cut from their vocabulary." I just got to take a minute because I cannot believe this is real. Any of us could tell them it's not the words that you're using, it's the what you stand for that is the problem. There is not a single issue that the Democrats are on the right side of a single 80-20 issue, just like we just listed out. Not a one. Instead, they have chosen to be on the wrong side. And the thing about the Democrat Party, the one thing that they've been good at for a very long time, to their own detriment, is that they've always been able to get on message with each other. You notice that every time the Democrats, when they all post online or they all get on to their mainstream media, that they're all using the same words over and over and over again, right? It's all a threat to our democracy. Because they think if they just repeat over and over and over again this very same lies, that then people will then believe it just because they heard it over and over again. But that has failed drastically as Donald Trump has now come back into president. The Republicans control the House and control the Senate. Trump won the popular vote. Trump won all 7 swing states. And the Democrats and their corporate media allies have learned all the wrong lessons from this. So this is nearly from 10 months after the 2024 election. So still, this is all the way back from November. They've still continued to think that, you know what, maybe we should, instead of being on the wrong side of every issue, no. Instead they're thinking, you know, we're just going to need to change our messaging. And the words that they shared exclusively with Political are the center-left think tank Third Way. There's nothing center-left about any of these agencies. And really, they should just give their money back in shame because anyone could have told them this for nothing. So they gave them a list of 45 words that they said that the Democrats, or words and phrases that the Democrats should no longer use at all in any of their messaging. Again, not that they need to change where they are in positions to be more aligned with American voters. That's not the issue. Not one bit. No, the issue is they just need to message better and not use these words. So here is the words they're told by their own think tank not to use anymore. The first word is privileged. I mean, that basically goes on how much of that gets rid of the Democrats' marketing, right? They try to say that half the country is privileged and the other half is not. Well, now they can't say that anymore, I guess. So no more privilege. Next is violence, but violence as an environmental violence. So they can still talk about violence, but not in the environmental sense. I think that whoever they paid for this should maybe explain that a little better of what the heck they're talking about. Next is dialoguing. So they can't use the word dialoguing anymore. I guess you just have to use different words for dialoguing. Next is triggering. I mean, what are little wokesters going to do if they can't talk about how they're triggered? Or microaggressions, which we'll get into here later. That's the whole reason. That's how they use to silence people. Is that, oh no, I'm triggered, and so therefore you can't speak your mind because it triggers me. Is that has been their new way to try to shut up people that they don't want to hear from. But that's gone too, apparently, because most people don't like it. I mean, who could have guessed that? It's a complete mystery in a riddle wrapped in an enigma. I don't understand. The other is othering. And then, like we brought up earlier, microaggressions. So a microaggression, because most people probably don't even know what that is. A microaggression is simply just means in this nonsense that you didn't mean to say anything wrong and you didn't say anything wrong, but somebody then decide that they're just going to take offense to what you said. So therefore, it's your fault that they took offense. You see, I mean, don't think about it. Don't try to make sense. That's just the Democrats, and that's their microaggressions. Is that you offended them with your words? How horrible. The next one is holding space. I don't even know. Okay, the next one that I told them not to use anymore is body shaming. And this is again one of the ones the Democrats have absolutely loved, as they've tried to shame people for looking good, like going down with Sydney Sweeney and all that she has done for jeans. I guess you're not allowed to body shame people if they're not, I don't know, I guess obese anymore. Next is subverting norms. But that is the whole point of the left. I mean, the very heart, the very foundation of the left is to hate our country and hate our way of life. But to do the hate, they then have to transfer the country back to the way that they think that it should be ran. So that is actually subverting norms. That is the heart of the Marxism, the way they look at our country. The next is systems of oppression. So apparently you, the American people, don't like being told that you're somehow oppressing people that you have never oppressed. Is the one of the things the Democrats love to go back to and blame is their favorite is, of course, slavery. As we brought that up in yesterday's show quite a bit with Joy Reid, who was losing her mind about she just can't let her racism go. And so the very heart, we talked about the Democrats, how they have their hatred for this country. And then, of course, that oppresses half the country, but doesn't oppress the other half, which is the other word they can't use now, is privilege. So how are the Democrats even going to get their message across of hatred and bitterness anymore? If they can't talk about these things, which of course they shouldn't talk about because people don't want to hear it. I mean, are you oppressing people? Do you feel that you are privileged? Of course not. See, the Democrats, they can't let that go. Next is cultural appropriations. Another one that the Democrats love to use to try to slander you into submission and give away what you have to the people that when you earned it, to the people who have not. Next is the Overton window. Again, yeah, because probably most people have no idea what that is. And next is the existential threat to. So it'd be climate or democracy or economy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're no longer should be talking about the existential threat. So the 10-year window on the climate change hasn't worked since when they started this back in the 50s, 60s. I mean, what was the big climate thing when you were in school that they were trying to push? For me, it was the ozone layer, right? If we didn't stop, what did they tell us? If we didn't stop like shaving, I think it was, you had to turn your water off in between each shave. Then if you didn't do that, then the ozone was going to open up and it was going to burn the entire world to the ground. So that was back then. Of course, it didn't happen. Which one was it for you? Next is the radical transparency. Okay, again, more just words that make up nothing. The stakeholders, the unhorsed, the food insecurities. I don't even know how to explain that one. No wonder why they shouldn't be talking about that anymore. Next is housing insecurities. Yeah, I don't know, have a job, pay your bills. Next, person who immigrated. Okay, why can't the Democrats learn the right lessons? Start just calling things for what they really are. It is not a person who immigrated. It is either in someone who came here illegally, an immigrant, or someone who came here illegally, an illegal alien. It is one of those two things. Anything else that the Democrats say, anything else that the Democrats make up is a bold and blatant lie from the left. It's just trying to normalize their own abuse of our systems, and that they allow tens of millions of people to come into our country illegally, and now they're trying to keep them here by changing the definitions of words. And one of the ones that I heard early on that really blew me away. What was it? I think it was on CNN. They called it something. They called it an undocumented American citizen. No, see, that's the very breaking of what the words actually mean. You're either a citizen or you are not a citizen. There is no one or the other. There is no person who immigrated, right? There is no undocumented workers. All that stuff is just trying to justify what an illegal alien actually is. Next one should surprise anyone. This is the birthing persons. So they tried to reduce mothers and women to birthing persons, all to try to justify these are biological males who just decided one day that they were going to be females, and now everybody else has to go and pretend that these biological males are females. And so to get that to try to go across, because obviously only women can birth children. And so to try to take away that, also what they're not allowed to use anymore is changing norms, is now a birthing person. And no, it's just women. And women give birth. Imagine that. Next is cisgender. Yeah, again, there are men and there are women. It is that straightforward. It is that simple. See, none of this stuff is complicated. Next, of course, was dead naming, another one of those trans things where you would call somebody by who they actually were, by their name or by their gender. And the Democrats, of course, did not like that one single bit, because that was, to them, dead naming. Next, the heteronormative, the patriarchy. Oh, that's going to kill half of AOC's her language. I mean, if she can't call about the patriarchy, then what's she going to talk about? And the next, they don't want to say anymore, is the LGBTQIAA plus hyphen and everything else they make up. Which this has never made any sense in the first place. Okay, if you're so-called lesbian or gay, then the T, the trans, isn't that opposite of who you are and what you believe in? And so they try to mix all this together, and that didn't work either. Who could have seen that happening? Next is BIPOC, and BIPOC is just a bunch of things together. I don't think I can say what it actually stands for. I think if I do that, they'd get this cut. So it's just going to leave it BIPOC. Next, allyship. I don't know. Is that more woke nonsense? I don't even know what that one means. Incarcerated people. So you can't say a criminal is a criminal if you're on the left. You have to say that they're an incarcerated person. No, they're a criminal. And they got arrested and they got locked up because they committed crimes. And then another one on that, the involuntary confinement. And no, you're a criminal. If you're a criminal, you get arrested. As the Democrat Party, they went in and they paid these people, I don't know how many millions of dollars, insane amount, I imagine, for something that we all have been telling them for years. And then a lot of us, how many of you were suspended or banned from social media for saying all these very same things? And yet the Democrats continue to learn nothing, as the spokesperson says this. The Democrat Party brand is toxic across the country at this point. They are, agreed. But they come to the wrong conclusion. With way too many people. Yeah, the Democrats are on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. Enough that there is no way for us to win governing majority without changing that. Gee, you think? You think being on the wrong side of every single issue means that you can't win elections? I mean, who could have told the Democrats this? It just blows me away. But he comes to the wrong conclusion. Part of the problem was that we are using the words that literally no one normal person uses. So by their own words, I guess, now they're not using the fake words anymore. Is the Democrats saying that they're no longer normal? Huh. That's interesting. Well, we were sticking to the message that were so overly scripted that basically sounded like nothing. Right. Because that's what the Democrats would do. Is they whoever gives them the language that they're supposed to talk would give them whatever talking points they're supposed to, and magically all the Democrats would come up and give all the same words over and over and over again. I mean, all of them. We would take lists all the time and show them side by side by side. or play clips of the media saying the same words over and over and over again, right? This is a threat to our democracy. This is an existential crisis. And they call half the country all these slanderous words, not because they believed any of it, but because they were trying to get to silence you into submission. That was the end goal of the Democrats, and it backfired and fell in their face. When they went after Trump, that really brought it, I think, to the nation as a whole. And now that how toxic the Democrat is, they're learning all the wrong lessons, because the problem isn't their way that they phrase things or they word things. See, that's the symptom. The cause is that they're on the wrong side of every single issue that the Americans care about. They're on the wrong side of the economy. The Democrats want to pretend that they weren't in charge of the federal government for the last 4 years. And they want to pretend that they didn't print trillions of dollars for no reason, causing inflation and causing prices to skyrocket. That was the Democrats. The Democrats want to pretend that they were not leaving our border wide open for the 4 years that Joe Biden was in office and allowed tens of millions of illegal aliens to come into our country. They want to pretend now that they're not defending criminals when they're doing so in like DC and LA, in California and New York and everywhere else that the Democrats have power. It's on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. They want to pretend that they're not on the wrong side of women's rights when they try to reduce women to abortions, instead of standing up for women's rights and like keeping biological males out of women's sports and spaces. You think all this stuff would be a no-brainer, but for the Democrats on the wrong side of every single issue, this is simply not true for them. They've become so authoritarian, they thought that they have the right to rule over you. And for that reason, they just can't see that they are on the wrong side of these issues. When the Democrats are so elite, they're so hubris that they just can't think that they're wrong. See, they think that you're the problem. That's what the very heart of this comes down to. It's because they hate their country, because they think that they're elite, they think that you are the problem here, not them. And so the solution isn't to get on the right side of any issue. Their issue is this: they just need to lie better. Right? They need to go in, they need to just change their words, and they're going to continue to learn nothing. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this New York Times article that has gotten so bad that even the New York Times is trying to warn the Democrat Party. This will absolutely shock you when all of a sudden even the New York Times realize there's an issue. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back from this greedy profit break. This is the CASHLOREN Show. The Democrat Party is so unpopular with the American voters that even the New York Times is trying to warn Democrats. They do not doubt for a single second that the New York Times, along with MSNBC, CNN, ABC, all the rest of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all Team DNC. They are not trying to help conservatives or help the center or help anyone other than the far left Democrats to warn them. As we covered a lot earlier, how the Democrats have gotten all the wrong lessons and are now trying to think that they just need to change their words that they use, not change their messaging. Completely wrong. Now in the New York Times here, they're writing this. So this is the Democrat Party is facing voter registration crisis in red, blue, and battleground states alike, losing ground to the GOP everywhere. Now, why could that be? Could they be losing ground everywhere because that they are just using the wrong words to describe what the Democrat Party stands for? Or are they losing ground everywhere because they're the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue that the American people care about? Obviously, I think it's the latter. So he goes on, the 30 state plus DC allowed for partisan registration. Between 2020 and 2024, the Democrats lost 2.1 million voters in those states. The GOP gained 2.4 million. Okay, that is how unpopular the Democrat Party is getting across these 30 states. And then the ones that don't do partisan registrations, we have no idea. But you would think it's either as bad or as worse, I think would be safe to say for the most part. By percentages, the Democrats went nearly 11-point edge of the GOP in 2020 to just over 6-point edge in 2024. So they lost 5 points at least, and probably more. Along the way, some states have flipped the GOP registration edge entirely. Florida is close. And of course, the big battleground state of Pennsylvania is very close. And then bringing up Pennsylvania, the Democrats had a registration advantage of 517,000 active voters in November 2020. Now, as of this summer, it's only 53,000. So in the very important battleground state of Pennsylvania, that is often considered like the shortest path to winning, to getting back into the White House, the Democrats lost 90%. And this is also where Scott Presler spent a lot of time registering voters. In North Carolina, Republicans erased roughly 95% of the registration advantage Democrats held in 2020. The Dems' edge is less than 17,000 votes after they were over 400,000 advantage in North Carolina. Wow. This is huge. And then it shows on a better measure for the party brand overall, as it has here in this graph, where the Democrats had almost in a 15 million edge, and now the Republicans are up by over 2 million in that same edge. So the Democrats have just tanked, and the Republicans are going up. Now, of course, the Democrats learn all the wrong lessons for this, is they think that they just need to tell a better message, or they need to message more, that they need to just say the wrong things the right way. Instead of learning what the lessons should be learning, is that maybe they should get, I don't know, on the right side of a single issue. When the only thing that the Democrats have that they can run on right now is their hatred for Donald Trump, which is really, hatred is the center of the Democrat Party. And when they say that they hate Donald Trump, who they're really saying they hate is you, the American voters, because you voted for him and they just cannot stand it. And they told you Donald Trump was all these really nasty things. And they told you about the impeachment hoaxes, and they told you about the 34 felonies, and the Gene Carroll and the boxes hoaxes, and the January 6th, and suckers and losers, and the 9 bullets. Hoax after hoax after hoax after hoax failed. To the corporate media, they no longer have any influence left. And this is the one thing that the Democrats have relied on for a very long time, is the corporate media, they would all pretend that they were journalists, neutral, and they were just sharing the news. But of course was all a lie. They were not neutral journalists just sharing the news. They were liars, and they were all in bed for the Democrat Party. Every single one of them, whether it be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political Axios, every single one of them were Team DNC. They were all in the bag for the Democrats. And for an entire generation, that was the only real way to get news out into the masses. So many people just didn't even have another way to know what was right and what was wrong. You get off work, you turn on the TV, or you'd open your newspaper, and all the programs that pretended to be different were actually all the same. Whether you go to LA Times or Washington Post, you go to MSNBC or CNN, and the way that they would lie was much worse than many had thought. Because there's one thing where they just wouldn't tell you certain stories they didn't want you to know. But then often what they do is they marry a truth to a lie. So that when they have to tell a story, they tell you the pieces that they wanted you to know, and then leave out the context that they didn't want you to know, because if you ever knew that context, you would never, ever come to the conclusion that they wanted you to come to. And so for that reason, it relied on all of them to be pushing the same points together. Because if just one broke, right, if just one separated from the rest, then all of a sudden the whole gig was up. Enter Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and changing it into X. And then all of a sudden, independent creators had a very, very big microphone. And you, the American people, see, most of you thought the way that we did. But because you could only go to the corporate media, you had no other really way, no way that most of America thinks exactly like you do. Now that this has happened, now all of a sudden the mainstream media, now when they go and they try to lie to the American people, when they try to change all the facts, you now have independent creators with very large microphones that can show it. And then all of a sudden people are starting to realize, wait a minute, I've been lied to. They told me that this was true, but it was not. One great example, which I think really exposed the corporate media to the masses, was Joe Biden. As he was in office, for 4 years, and the corporate media and all the Democrats kept lying and talking about how he was the sharpest man in the room, right? And how smart he was, and on top of everything he was. When it's very likely the entire time Joe Biden was a vegetable. And maybe he had cancer. Don't know at what point. They still haven't told us. In fact, his doctor pleaded the fifth. And then it was at that moment in the debate when Joe Biden got up on the debate stage and started mumbling about the border. Well, oh, you know, we just got this, you know, and then you know, we get this bill that we and they just went off some random rant. And they were sitting there, and then Donald Trump looked at him and said, "I don't know what he said. He doesn't know what he said, but here is my plan." And that was the moment, I think, for the people who watch corporate media all of a sudden realize that they had been lying to them this entire time. And then rather than corporate media taking a step back, rather than corporate media saying, you know, maybe we should, I don't know, stop lying, they didn't double down on it. And they pretended like the White House had deceived them this entire time. In fact, even Jake Tapper wrote a book on this very subject. Well, there's two huge problems with that. Either one, it's true, and the corporate media didn't know. Well, if that is true, that also means that they were too stupid to put two things together. I mean, I was watching that debate, and when I saw that happen, I thought to myself, this isn't even that bad. You know, I could go and I could show you 10 clips that are way worse than what just happened on the debate stage. And then between the corporate media, then pretend that it wasn't their fault. So that is one part. Or two, they knew the entire time and they were lying to you, the American voters. See, it was one of those two things. Neither one is a good outcome for them. And the Democrats continue to run on crime, continue to run on corruption, on open borders, on biological males in women's spaces. Please, Democrats, please continue to learn absolutely nothing. I really do beg you to do that. And continuing to learn nothing now, if you go to switch to this, is that they are also thinking that they can put Gavin Newsom on the national stage. Man, I hope so. As you see, the Democrats now, as they have, this was on CNN today, where they say Gavin Newsom has surged 40 points among California Democrats who want him to run for president in 2028. Now at 75%. But do the Americans want Gavin Newsom? I mean, do the people who are in the middle? I mean, the thing is, Gavin Newsom is very much similar to like Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, they're almost identical. They're both far radical left Democrats. They are both hardcore leftists. But the difference between Barack Hussein Obama and Gavin Newsom is now that the mainstream media will not be able to protect Gavin Newsom. And he's already starting to try to pretend that he's somehow a neutral, middle of the road Democrat, right? And that he's, you know, for the working man, when he is a radical leftist activist. And this is all going to come up if they try to put him on the main stage. Because of course the corporate media, they won't show any of the clips. They won't show his policies. They'll try to hide it from you, the American voters, as they have learned nothing. But Gavin Newsom will be exposed by us, by the independent creators, as the amount of clips that we'll be able to expose and show to everybody will absolutely tank his career. I mean, they think Kamala Harris was bad. Wait till Gavin Newsom tries to lie over and over again on the national stage, and then we could put clips right next to it of when he's lying and then exposing how. But for the Democrats, unfortunately, they have nobody. I mean, if they don't run Gavin Newsom, who are they going to run? Pete Buttigieg? Jasmine Crockett? AOC? Bernie Sanders? Are they going to go and they're going to fight the oligarchy? I don't think so. So Gavin Newsom trying to pretend that he's a moderate. He's now also trying to pretend that he is Trump. He goes, new merch coming soon. You're welcome, Patriots. Nothing patriotic about the Democrat Party. But he's got his new red hat. Newsom was right about everything. Please try it. Please continue to expose to all the American people how wrong you were on everything. And even the people in California, did you see these ones? They're now fighting back against Newsom and the other Patriot. And on this, that goes, label the Patriots in California are putting up billboards wrecking Gavin Newsom. I'm Gavin Newsom. I destroyed California with my bad ideas. Congratulations, Newsom. High gas prices in this country, record crime, violence, and homelessness. See, that's what's going to happen if they try to put Gavin Newsom on the national stage. And then also his new press office, the Gavin press office, is basically the new Kamala Harris HQ. And on this, they wrote that Kid Rock once used, so showing Kid Rock in the kind of the Uncle Sam patriotic hat in the nice suit, so to support Gavin Newsom. And then Kid Rock promptly quote posted, "The only support Gavin Newsom will ever get from me is these. It's a complete embarrassment and flop." And the Trump administration is continuing to fight back against the corruption of the Democrats and against the corruption of the deep state. Is now that the FBI has finally moved, and they did a early morning dawn raid on one of the deep state officials. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back. You're not going to miss it at this greedy profit break. This is the CASHLOREN Show. The Democrats went mercilessly under Donald J. Trump for years. Ever since he went down the escalator and announced that he was going to run for president of the United States of America. They laughed and they mocked him. And then when he actually won, they then went after him with everything that they had. Now the tables have turned. And now that we're in now all the way to 2025, this is after, remember, they went after for impeachment number one, impeachment number two. They went after him for the boxes for January 6th, for the felonies for Jean Carroll, one after another. And after Donald Trump had won, when they didn't think he could win, now that they come back, their new thing is they're scared that all the people who abuse their positions of power may be held as responsible for what they have done. Well, for that reason, they came up with this newest hoax that all of a sudden that Donald Trump was abusing his power. They always accuse us of what they did. And this is because early in this morning, when a lot of people were saying, when is the FBI going to go after some of these people? Well, here in the early hours this morning, the FBI raided John Bolton's house. And this was over 8 hours. He not only raided his house, but they also raided his office. And this is a part because of it's going back to his 2020 book, where he apparently released classified information in his book that he didn't have permission to do so, allegedly. And then also that they believe that he has been leaking classified information out, according to the accusations that this entire time. And the Bolton eventually returned, not looking to happen. And I hope that he is held responsible for this. As Kash Patel posted out, no one is above the law. The FBI agents are on a mission. And then Dan Bongino quote posted, "Public corruption will not be tolerated." Facts. 100%. There's no more two-tier justice system that we have lived under for far too long. I mean, how often have you seen the people that if you're on the right side of the deep state, these unelected bureaucrats, then nothing ever seems to happen to these people, right? You hear about the investigations and you hear about the criminality, but then nothing ever becomes of it, or they get some kind of sweetheart deal. But then someone like Trump, they want to throw in prison for 1,000 years, all because they allegedly accuse him of signing some documents wrong. Now, the FBI, when they raided his house here, and that this is the FBI official, what they said is, it is widely known that Bolton mishandled and took classified information used in 2020 book. After he failed to get approval from the National Security Council of the publication of what was determined as highly classified information. This raid of Bolton's residence comes after years of investigations into this potential crime disclosure, which started all the way back in 2020. So this is after Bolton published his books. This is all the way back to Chris Wray and the Biden's DOJ. Yet we know how many times did you hear about this? Probably nothing, right? So all the way 4 years, Chris Wray did nothing, but they had no problem going after Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago. The Trump administration is committed to restoring integrity of the Justice Department and ending the weaponization of government. Our investigation will follow the evidence and ensure accountability. Good. Like we've been saying this entire time, no one should be above the law. We're tired of this two-tier justice system. If you come into this and you do a crime, then you should be held responsible. I don't care if you're a Republican, and I don't care if you're a Democrat. And then Scott Jennings, he also used John Bolton's own words against him. And Scott, to remind everyone, what Bolton said at the Mar-a-Lago raid, insisting that the same standards must apply today that they apply to everybody else, because that's what they justified to go after Donald Trump. Remember, no one is above the law. That is what the Democrats said. But now that it's coming back against them, now all of a sudden they're trying to pretend that, this is weaponization of the Justice Department. Or the next narrative come is that we have now that everybody agrees that this is somehow political persecution. And this is coming from Welker. She is interviewing JD Vance. I want you to listen to her clip here. She talks about that how they're now trying to pretend that there's a consensus that Donald Trump should not be arresting people who have broke the law when they went after him and everybody in his circle mercilessly. But listen how she words this, and then JD Vance absolutely destroys her.
A lot of people have already looked at this and said, this looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution?
Yeah, so a lot of people have already looked at them. That's what Welker and the rest of them are going with this. Is they just talk to each other and they all decide together, like, 4 legs bad, 2 legs good at the end of Animal Farm, is that now they all only talk to each other. And so they all then decide that a lot of people have already discussed this, and a lot of people have decided that this is political persecution. So because they've all talked to each other and they've all decided that this is political persecution, so then that must be real. And then the John Bolton raid now is exposed that the people just don't agree with it. And now listen how JD Vance lays it out perfectly as they went after Donald Trump. So why can't he go after Bolton?
Said it looks a lot like retribution, Kristen. A lot of people who tried to throw Donald Trump in prison for completely fake charges that were later thrown out by multiple different courts. I suspect that if the media and the American people let this case actually unfold, if they let the investigation unfold as it's currently doing, they're going to find out that what we're doing is being very deliberate and being very driven by the national interest and by the law here, and that's as it should be.
Right. That no one is above the law. I mean, isn't that what the Democrats said for years when they're going after Donald Trump? It didn't matter if he was president. It didn't matter if the evidence they had was very shaky. What mattered was that no one was above the law. And that is how they justified going after Donald Trump mercilessly. Well, then now the tables have flipped. Okay? If then that was justification for Trump, then why is that not a justification for John Bolton? Especially if John Bolton did everything that they accused Donald Trump of doing, as if he had classified information that he shouldn't have had, and then he leaked that information out, or he wrote it in a book when he did not have authorization to do so, okay, that is a criminal charge. So if that is true for Bolton, then why can't he not be held personally responsible? Just like they tried to hold Donald Trump. Why not Hillary Clinton? Why not Clapper? Why not Brennan? Why not Comey? Why not Merrick Garland? Why not Christopher Wray? Isn't that what the Democrats said this entire time? Nobody's above the law? Well, then fine. Is this political persecution, or is this holding everybody to the same standard? Because that is what's really made the two-tier justice system so terrible, and why it was written into the very heart of our country of why justice is supposed to be blind. Because if you have a system where some people can break the law and then it's either not enforced at all or very minorly, yet if you're on the wrong side, you're somebody that the people in power don't like, and they will go after you with everything they have to try to take you down. See, that was the real message of why they went after Donald Trump. They weren't really going after Donald Trump. Who they were really going after was you, the American people. See, this was the bureaucracy, the deep state, the Democrats and their FBI and DOJ and all the others. This was them saying to you, the American people, don't you dare even go against us. Don't you even try, because if you do, we will ruin your life. I mean, look what we did to Donald Trump. Just imagine if Donald Trump had not won when they put him in New York. I mean, he'd probably be sitting in a prison cell right now, because of what the Democrats tried to do to him. And that was the warning. If we can do this to Donald Trump, right? If he's a billionaire and he's probably the most photographed person in the world, if he's that famous, and we can do that to Donald Trump, just imagine what we can do to you. So don't even try it. Don't you dare try to go up against us. We will. That's why they have to bankrupt him. That's why they had to try to ruin his businesses. That's why they had to go after his family. See, all of it was never really about Trump. Trump was just in the way. What it was really about is what they were scared of is an actual billionaire populace having power and then going up against who the deep state thought that they had permanent power. But now they screwed around and now they found out. And Donald Trump, he responded to this. He goes, they went into my house, right? They went into Mar-a-Lago. And if they went into Mar-a-Lago, why can't they go into John Bolton's house? I mean, they went through his son's room. They went through his wife's private areas. And now we found out that they staged the documents for a picture that they leaked to the press. Will anybody be held accountable for that? As you remember back that very famous FBI photo, what they did is they took the documents out of the boxes and then they had brought these classified markings with them and they put them over the documents and laid them on the floor, took a picture and very heavily applied that Donald Trump just had classified documents all over his house when it wasn't true. And then John Bolton, this is his own words eating him now, as he was on CNN and saying, I think a lot of Republicans just wish Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard would go away. And no, they don't. Maybe the uniparty rhinos do. Maybe the ones who want things to just go back the way that they were, right? Where the Democrats win and the Republican Party loses. We don't fight back. And that this is the last gasp of the neocons. Their 30-year reign over the Republican Party has come to an end. And even MSNBC, who has continued to learn nothing as they try to rebrand because their brand is so toxic that rather than, like we talked about earlier in the Democrats, as they just change their words, they don't change their policies. Well, here's MSNBC too. As they do the same thing that they've always done, is they bring in some expert, but this is a former disgraced FBI official, to say that my suspicion is to look at performance of political. This is highly concerning that the FBI would not be used as a tool to go after political enemies. Yeah, this is the same FBI that went after Donald Trump, that went after Steve Bannon, that went after General Flynn, that went after countless others, including all the other January 6th defendants, mercilessly overcharged them and tried to ruin their lives. This very same FBI now is calling if going after Bannon as being highly politicized, but that is not going to work. The American people are not going to buy it anymore, and they still have learned nothing from all this. They still think that they can pull these same things over and over again and get away with it. They have learned nothing. This is another one. So this is Olivia on X. She posted here. So this is what she posted after Bannon's house is raided. The rule of law and justice has prevailed. Oh, excuse me. This is first. This is after they went after Donald Trump. This is her post. The rule of law and justice has prevailed. Guilty in all 34 counts. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. A convicted felon is a Republican nominee for president. Okay, so that was her after they drugged him in New York. In an area with a Trump-hating judge, NAG, in a spot where 96% voted for Biden. Now here is her after the exact same thing with John Bolton. When Kash Patel turns the FBI into Trump's revenge squad. So now when Biden sends the DOJ and the FBI after Trump, well, then that's justice. But if the FBI goes after Bolton, well, then that's a revenge squad. That's not justice. That's authoritarianism. Today is John Bolton. Tomorrow could be any critic who dares to defy Trump, or someone who takes classified documents and leaks them. Maybe, you might want to leave that context in. The Bureau's credibility is being gutted from within. The intimidation, not law. No, it's not. It was the Bureau lost all of its credibility when they abused their power to go after things like parents for simply going to school boards and asking them what books were in the library. The FBI lost all their credibility when they started arresting and imprisoning grandmas for doing nothing more than praying at abortion clinics. The FBI, they lost all their credibility and they lost all their authority when they went after people who did nothing wrong on January 6th and tried to put them in prison for the rest of their lives. Or for people who did very minor things like they walked into the Capitol and walked out and they tried to throw them in prison for decades. And even after the Supreme Court ruled that they were not allowed to do that, the FBI still tried to change the charges to keep them in prison. That's when the FBI and the DOJ, that's when they lost all their credibility. When they were weaponized by the Democrats. But this is the number one Democrats to go through is they always accuse their opponents of what they are guilty of. Just like we're going to find out here, this is the law firm, just affirmatively determined that Donald J. Trump does have the legal authority to fire Democrat Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. So this Lisa Cook, what she did is she did accuse of doing mortgage fraud, just like Schiff and just like Letitia James, is where she had multiple properties that she claimed to be her primary residence. You cannot do that. And often they will do this because they get better rates or they will get insurance or other benefits because this is your primary residence. And she listed, apparently, she listed their property for rent and about 6 months before, and then she listed it as her primary residence, while she had another property as her primary residence. And so Trump said that if she doesn't resign, he's going to fire her. And at the start of the show, she had not resigned yet. She was refusing to. Just like Letitia James, when she got a call, and she also refused to resign. And now we're going to find out. The FBI went after John Bolton today, and we're going to find out what Pam Bondi is made of. Is she actually going to uphold the law equally? Is she going to go after people like Letitia James? Is she going to go after the Adam Schiffs, the Comers, the Brennans, the Comeys, the Clintons, and hold them responsible for what they did? Do you think she will, or do you think she won't? Let me know. With that, we're at the top of the hour. The rest of these stories have to go back in the stack. I appreciate every single one of you. We're about to 5,000 viewers right now on X. It means a whole lot to you. I've seen some engagement over on Facebook as well. And we've had a very well done show also on TikTok too. And then over on Spaces. Thank you so much for your help, Darren, over there. He's been helping me produce the show. It means a whole lot. We'll be back on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The show will now be live Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then I'm going to wrap up the main show. Then we'll come back on Spaces and TikTok for a little bit. Join you guys for a conversation for a little bit and finish up the rest of these stories. And so we'll see you then.